Does Avengers Endgame finally make this DC fanboy bend the knee to Marvel? Let's find out. Welcome to the objective review of Avengers Endgame. And in the objective review, I like to break a movie down into 6 categories and assign weights to them depending on the genre to have the most honest, unbiased, objective review as possible. There will be no spoilers in this review. And just before we start, I do like most of the Marvel movies. I think they're mostly good. I do think more than half of them are highly overrated, but let's get into rating this one. Let's start off with the first category of story.
We lost, all of us. We lost friends, we lost family. We lost a part of ourselves. This is the fight of our lives.
And in the story of Endgame, it picks up sometime after the events of Infinity War, after Thanos had snapped his fingers and half of the living population in the entire universe vanished into little dust particles. And our heroes are really still dealing with the aftermath of this. They still feel like there's something they can do. They still feel like they have to live up to their namesake and actually avenge everyone who's been gone. And the thing I do love about this film is that it really just shows how much people have changed, how much people have grown. I think it was a really good job of doing that, especially in the first, third of this film. I mean, these characters kind of go on a little mini arc, and they did it so well in just that short amount of time. You really got a sense of just where these characters were, where the mind frame was at, just how either lost or hopeful they are. So the plot of this film is that the team, the remaining leftover, have to go and find Thanos, try and take back the Infinity Gauntlet and undo what he did. And I won't say any more than that in order to avoid some spoilers. But let's get into some of the deeper meanings of the film and the meanings and the themes of sacrifice and absolutely living up to the tagline of this movie is whatever it takes. And that's one of my critiques of the past Marvel movies. I feel like rarely was there anything really sacrificed. Everything was always kind of tied up in a neat bow by the time the movie ended, and everything went back to the status quo because they don't want to mess up with the story they're telling. But in Endgame, we don't have that issue here because this is the end game. This is what all this story has been leading to. So you can finally take that risk with the characters. You can finally put them on a path that can't be undone because you're worried about the next films coming up. You can finally really challenge them to a whole new level. I'm gonna stop the story there and we'll get a 9 out of 10. Next is on to emotion.
I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
The emotion in this film is the best Marvel has done. I mean, there was at least 3 moments where I think my eyes even started to kind of get a little bit watery, And the thing is, I don't even care about these characters all that much. Like, I'm not a huge MCU fan. I do love, some of the movies, but I'm not that invested in these characters. But this movie did such a good job of getting me reinvested in them, raising my love of them in the actual film itself. Because I honestly don't love Robert Downey Jr. I don't love Thor. I don't love Hulk in these movies. I do like Captain America. I love Black Panther. But this movie did such a great job of getting me to care about them again. And when, certain things happen, when characters are challenged, when they're, making tough decisions, I'm invested. And no other Marvel movie has done this. Few movies have honestly really done this. So I'll give that a 9.5 out of 10. Next on to comedy.
Hi, is anyone home? This is Scott Lang. We met a few years ago at the airport in Germany. I got really big.
Is this an old message?
Ant-Man, I know you know that.
And this is where the worst part of the film is to me. And the thing is, I'm going to contradict myself a lot when it comes to comedy, because this movie is very, very hilarious. It kept me chuckling through a good portion of the film. I laughed out loud at least 4 or 5 times. But I think with that being said, the comedy came in some really inopportune times. Like, it really, got in the way of some of the best moments of the film. I mean, and it didn't have to do that because there's so much comedy through it that you didn't need to add comedy in these certain moments. You could have just pulled back. And there's one character in particular that I really disliked in this movie. And it's because they took that comedy and they pushed it a whole nother level, I think. And it was just really distracting. So as funny I think this movie is, I think it is somewhat of a detriment to the film overall. So I'm gonna give that a 7.5 out of 10. Next is on to action.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
The interesting thing about the action in this movie is that it doesn't really follow the stereotypical superhero movie where there's like 3 big action scenes. And initially, I kind of held that against the film when I was just thinking about it after watching it. But I really shouldn't, I don't think, because I was still entertained even before that. The third act of this film, watching it, like I said, I'm not a Marvel fan, but I cheered in the theater. I've only cheered in a movie theater maybe 4 times, like in The Dark Knight, in The Dark Knight Rises, and Aquaman, and those are all DC films. I didn't even cheer in Black Panther, and I cheered in this film. I said, oh shit, and I don't even curse that often. It was just some amazing, amazing moments. A lot of these characters just really coming together and just to battle the ultimate evil. I don't care what you say about Thanos, he is evil. You have great action, mostly from everyone. I really enjoy the action with Captain America, really enjoy the action with Thor, those two, and just their tag teaming abilities. Although Iron Man's action was fine, and a couple other characters, of course, have some amazing action sequences. And again, that final third act is just comic book glory. Like, it is amazing. I'm not even gonna lie. Give action a 10 out of 10 here. Next is on to acting.
When I drift off, I will dream about you. It's always you.
Now with acting in this film, there are mostly ups. Everyone does a fairly adequate job. I think Robert Downey Jr. gives his best performance in the MCU. I think this movie and Iron Man 1 gives a very clear arc to the character, and I just really enjoy that. I think Robert Downey Jr. did an amazing job really showing that. He wasn't really as pompous in this movie. He was more serious, but he was still very much Robert Downey Jr. Gave a very heartfelt performance. And Paul Rudd also had a really great moment, I think, that really just put into perspective just what they're fighting for. As for the worst offenders, I think Chris Hemsworth was sort of in a different movie than everyone else. I mean, even regardless of that, there's no real Oscar-worthy performances in this film, but still, everyone, I think, but Chris Hemsworth does a really great job. So for acting, it gets an 8 out of 10. Next is on to directing. First of all, in directing, let's talk about the length of this movie. This movie is 3 hours long. Did it need to be 3 hours long? No, it did not need to be 3 hours long at all. I think splitting this movie into thirds, really enjoyed that first third, and I felt like that second third way through the movie could have been shortened up a bit. Like, we could just kind of cut this down to 2 hours and 40 something minutes. I think that would have been good. But that being said, every moment of this film was fairly entertaining. One of my biggest issues with the movie is the tone. The tone is just kind of all over the place. And I feel like they just kind of bring in some of that comedy. They could have just really driven home just a more perfect film. I think the score in this film worked very, very perfectly. I mean, they were very bombastic. The Avengers theme kicks in so many times. But more importantly that, they really did a good job of selling those and supporting those sincere moments, those quiet moments. There were a big issue, I think, with one of the costume designs. It was just really distracting. I think really, really unnecessary. But I think really good job to the Russo brothers for this. It gets an 8 out of 10. So that brings us to our weighted average score of a 9 out of 10. Rarely do any movie really reach that level for me. This is my favorite Marvel movie. This is the first time that I will say that a Marvel movie is better than one of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight films, The Dark Knight Rises. but it is an amazing movie, and probably the first Marvel movie besides Black Panther that I'm fully supporting, hoping that it breaks all the records, you know, go kill Titanic and Avatar, and let's all comic book nerds just enjoy this time we live in. All right, please let me know what you think about the movie. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And sincerely, thank you for watching. I'm out.